All right, big update that's coming in this morning. Rhea Chakraborty has been charge sheeted by the Narcotics Control Bureau. This is with regards to the case that was filed against her in the drug probe of Sushant Singh Rajput's death. She's been charged for supplying drugs to a high society in Bollywood. Rhea Chakraborty and 34 others have been named in that charge sheet. They've also been accused of abetting Sushant into extreme drug addiction. The NCB in its charges against Rhea Chakraborty claimed that between March and December 2020, all 35 accused entered into a criminal conspiracy. As per the NCB, the plot was to finance drug trafficking, including procuring, sale, transport and distribution of drugs in high society and Bollywood. It's not just that, the accused are also accused of consumption of ganja, of charas, LSD, cocaine, as well as other drugs. Besides that, the NCB has mentioned in their charge sheet that the accused allegedly used Sushant's bank account to procure contraband and termed it as material used for puja. These are the kind of details that the NCB has mentioned while they've named Rhea Chakraborty directly and charge sheeted her. Vidya is joining us live from Mumbai with more details on this. This spells trouble for Rhea Chakraborty and all the others named in the case. Vidya, give us the details that the NCB has mentioned, because they've talked about consumption, they've talked about procurement, they've also spoken about them abetting Sushant Singh Rajput's addiction to drugs.
Well, in fact, the entire draft charges that has been given to the special NDPS courts very clearly states that Rajput was going through an extreme drug addiction, and this was being abetted by people like Rhea Chakraborty, Showik Chakraborty and many others who, according to the NCB, were all working together. Remember, there are 35 accused in this case, from drug peddlers to suppliers to consumers, and according to the NCB, all these people were working together in one conspiracy towards procuring drugs for people in the high society, in the Bollywood, for Sushant Singh Rajput. So this is what exactly has been the charge against these people. Against the 35 accused, there are 38 charges that has been given by the NCB to the court. Now it will, during this time, while the draft charges were given, the accused have also filed few discharge applications, which is the process. Basically, when the discharge applications get decided in court, at that time, when the court decides whether a person is needed to be taken through the entire trial or not, then the court will decide whether these people need to be facing the charges. So all this process goes hand in hand, but in the draft, the application for discharge that has been filed by a few accused, including Kshitij, one of the accused who was an executive producer, Dipesh Sawant in Bollywood, he very clearly has said that this is a similar case like that of Aryan Khan, and either there should be re-investigation like in Aryan Khan's case, the drug cruise case, remember, of 2021, in which these people, like Aryan Khan and all these people were not charge sheeted because the investigation was given to the SIT. Kshitij Prasad in his discharge application too has said that either there should be a re-investigation like in the Aryan Khan case, or there should be a discharge that he should be given because there is no evidence. So certainly different conflicting views put before the court. The court will really have to take a decision after the NCB files a reply to these discharge applications. So NCB has put forth the draft charges. The accused have filed discharge applications. The process therein will start now.
The kind of details that are mentioned in this charge sheet, Vidya, it doesn't all go well for Rhea, because it means extremely grave charges. There's talk of procurement. They're talking about her supplying drugs to Bollywood, to high society, about consuming drugs, hard drugs like cocaine, LSD have been mentioned. They've also said that she, as well as the other accused, used Sushant Singh Rajput's money, used his bank account to procure these drugs, and then claimed that it was money that was used to buy material for puja.
In fact, the material for puja was a code word that was used. Remember, when they were interacting, there was a group, WhatsApp group, according to the investigators, that was actually, trying to procure drugs for Sushant Singh Rajput, who was extremely addicted, according to the NCB. And these people were abetting his requirement, and in that process they had been in contact with certain drug peddlers, with certain drug suppliers, and from them they were procuring these, contraband banned in India. It cannot be used, but contraband which come under the NDPS Act, they were being procured for Sushant Singh Rajput, and not just him, against Dipesh Prasad as well as other accused. It is very clearly mentioned in the draft that these people were procuring to be supplied on to other people like Sushant Singh Rajput, into Bollywood, into high societies, the celebrities. So all that has been mentioned, although Dipesh Prasad very clearly says in his discharge plea that he was named only because he refused to give further names to the NCB. Well, these are allegations that the court will really have to decide here on, in the next few days, that we should be seeing the entire process really beginning in the NDPS court.
So this is the beginning of the troubles, essentially legal troubles at least, for Rhea Chakraborty. Vidya, can you run us through all the other accused also in this case? Has Rhea's brother also been charge-sheeted? You know, there were several drug peddlers in the course of this investigation into the SSR drug case who were also taken into custody, and their role, their links to Rhea Chakraborty were also under the scanner.
Well, all those, in fact, there are 35 accused in this, Akshita. There are 35 people who had been arrested. Not a single one of them, like in the Aryan Khan case, has been discharged from the case. All the 35 were charge-sheeted, including Rhea Chakraborty, Showik, Siddharth Pitani, the cook and the help of Sushant Singh Rajput, who was staying in his house and were, procuring these drugs for him whenever he could not really go out. So all this has been mentioned in the draft charges that has been given by the NCB, and the NCB very clear that the charges that have been leveled in, remember, there are very stringent sections that have been imposed in this case, especially against Showik, against Rhea Chakraborty herself as well. In this particular case right now, they are facing charges of 27A, 28, 29, 8C. These are sections, stringent sections of 27A, where these are for illicit trading, for procuring, for producing drugs. That's the stringent sections that has been imposed against all these accused, and that would be certainly difficult for these accused to prove, and that they are not actually going to be in this case. So it's certainly a difficult days ahead for all the accused for trying to prove their innocence, and the NCB to try to prove their case as well.
Okay, so at this point, Rhea Chakraborty has been charge-sheeted by the NCB, by the Narcotics Control Bureau. They've named her for consumption, for procurement, for supplying drugs to high society in Bollywood. She, along with 34 others, have been named in this charge sheet. Any details with you on the kind of evidence also that they have against Rhea Chakraborty? Because time and again, through the course of this particular case and this investigation, there have been allegations of an unfair, biased probe by the NCB, of this being a witch hunt against Rhea Chakraborty. So what's the kind of evidence that they've really gathered so far? Has that been mentioned? Vidya, if you can hear me, can you give us details of the kind of evidence that the NCB has gathered against Rhea?
Well, most of the evidence, according to even the defense and the prosecution, is of WhatsApp messages. Remember, there are a lot of WhatsApp messages that were exchanged. There were WhatsApp groups, as I mentioned earlier. Although, according to the defense, these WhatsApp is not really, without a 65 certificate under the Evidence Act. These are not really something that can be used by the prosecution, but the prosecution has used these WhatsApp messages. There are statements of accused that is being used against themselves, although the defense has been trying to remind the prosecution that, according to a Supreme Court order, these cannot really be used. If you remember, just a couple of years ago, last year, there was an order by the Supreme Court wherein the NDPS officers who had, the NCB officers who had the power under NDPS to actually record statements of accused which were quasi-judicial, that has been taken away by the Supreme Court. So those statements of the accused cannot be used against they themselves, is something that the Supreme Court has said, and that's what the defense is now going to rely on, that these statements are not of any use after the Supreme Court order. and secondly, WhatsApp messages without the 65 certificate under the Evidence Act are not usable. So these are something that the defense will be using, but the prosecution very sure that they have a case with the WhatsApp messages, the statements of the accused against them, that they'll be able to prove this case against all the 35 accused.
Okay, so we're going to be tracking all the updates that come in. What next, Vidya? How does this case progress now? And what does this mean for Rhea Chakraborty as well?
Well, as of now, Rhea Chakraborty hasn't really, spoken about this entire draft charges. In fact, remember, like Kshitij Prasad and a few other, few people who have actually challenged the draft charges, the charges against them, and they are asking for discharge. Rhea and Showik have not moved a discharge application like Kshitij Prasad and others. So it remains to be seen what their legal move will be. But it does seem like, remember sometime back she had been invited for IFA, but she couldn't go because she had a lookout certificate, circular issued against her. So there are a lot of legal, hassles that she will have to go through at the moment. But her legal team is very sure that they will be able, though a little time will pass before this, but they will be able to get her out of this entire situation that she got into post Sushant Singh Rajput's death in 2020.
Okay.